All yours, Lisa.
I'd like to call the planning board meeting of October 9, 2023 to order at 7:04 PM. Just a reminder to everyone to silence your cell phones. First item on the agenda are the minutes, the approval of our minutes of September 11, 2023. Was somebody absent then?
Somebody what?
Was anyone absent then? I'm not remembering. Are we all voting for this?
I think everybody was there for that one.
Okay. I will entertain a motion to accept the minutes as our final minutes.
I move we accept. A second.
Pat to Jim. All those in favor? Aye. I should mention that Mike Baker is joining us this evening on Zoom and is a voting member.
Okay.
September the 26th, minutes of September 26th. Jim was not a voting member.
So I will be abstaining.
Okay, I would entertain a motion to accept the minutes as amended by everyone.
I move we accept.
Pat,
Second.
Lorraine, second. All those
No,
in,
but Jim has to abstain. He was still there.
oh,
Well, yeah, but I was a member of the
I'm personally
public.
was a member of the public at that time.
well, he was actually.
just a
he was
non-voting board
He was
member.
just a non-voting board member.
I think he can vote.
He doesn't want to
If you
vote.
don't want to vote, if you want to
don't
abstain,
need
you
to
can
vote.
abstain.
All right.
So you abstain?
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone abstaining this evening?
I will
Jim
abstain.
McCauley is abstaining. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the public comment period. This is for anything that is not on our agenda this evening. Is there anyone in our public that has anything they want to bring to our attention?
No, just Susan Ainsley here for the board.
You're here as the liaison, Susan?
Well,
Or is
I'm
that
not-
Boomer?
Well, I'm not sure if Drew is there.
No,
Wolfgang's here.
Wolfgang is here.
A Wolfgang, okay. I
So
can
is it-
be
Is
just,
Wolfgang our
yes, yes,
liaison? Okay,
yes, officially. I'm unofficially here.
okay. Is there no one speaking for the public? I would close the public comment period.
Is this
Yeah.
Susan with
Oh,
community partner?
other Susan? Is there anyone else that's on Zoom that wishes to speak?
No, I don't have anything to say. I'm good. I'm here as a citizen observer, Susan Piliero.
Thank you, okay. I would then entertain a motion to close the public comment
I move
period.
we close the public comment. I will second.
Jim, all those in favor?
Aye.
First item on the agenda is to continue the public hearing for the final plat of cluster subdivision proposal 2021-4464 by Beer Properties. Beer Properties and Hunt Engineers are providing the final plat of a cluster subdivision for property parcel 45.2-1-472, which consists of approximately 40 acres of vacant land located between Craft Road and Bush Lane. Final plat, along with details of proposed duplex lots, will be reviewed by the planning board. So this is a continuation of our public hearing. Mike, what do you have for us?
John and Dondi sent me something this morning that they were good with everything, except there was a couple of changes that they sent to you. I didn't see any. They said there was a couple of minor changes and they'd like to just get those solved and they'd be all set. So that's kind of where we're at with that. Sorry, David, that's best I could do getting that done. John was taking some time off this week or this past week, so things just kind of, that's the way it is. But he did say that, he and Donnie did say that majority of it is fine from what we talked about in our one engineering meeting, and he just had a couple changes, which I'll send over to you and Tim.
Is there any indication, does it have a bearing on the final plat, or are these little engineering details that don't have bearing on?
Well, either way, I'd still have to, at the next meeting, you'd have to bring me, something for them to look at and say, hey, look, this is good. And then we'll figure out something as far as, okay, we'll sign the one that we had there, so we know that that's the one that we said, yes, that was good. It won't be the plat that you take down to the assessor's department, but we'll start the next process at that point if we've got everything all taken care of. As far as what Natalie and Ray have come up with, pretty much nothing's changed.
Yeah, Ray and I have agreed on the wording of the conditions. We're just waiting on that final plat to get a list of the easements to insert. So we can approve that next meeting. But we're
Okay.
set, and we're working, I'm gonna give Ray like draft easements to use to get the easements started.
We pretty much got, at the last meeting, we pretty much settled, you know, what the sidewalk issue is gonna be on the loop road, which was, we're going to be leaving some space in the right of way for sidewalks to be
Right.
put there in the future if it needed to be. There was not gonna be an escrow. We decided there was gonna be no escrow or whatnot about that. There were a couple of the changes that Brent had made, the southern portion of the townhouses, there was gonna be some drainage. There might be a small easement there on those parcels, but it was going to be put on the plat, and then I think Natalie said when they're separated, it'll go with the actual plat of each subdivided parcel. And then also the stub road, so to speak, was gonna be, end up being paved.
Right.
That was kind of a summary of what we did the last meeting. So that hasn't changed any,
Well,
so.
okay, so I'm concerned that because we are not going to be having a meeting the last day of the month of October, our next planning board meeting is not until November this 13th, which means, you know, closing the public hearing and, you know, taking final action on all of this is delayed. I think it's really imperative that we have all of this pinned down by then. That gives us like a month. I just really feel strongly, I'm frustrated by this, I'm sure that, you know, they're just always, it just keeps kind of getting delayed, and let's just,
May I second that frustration?
I thought you might, David.
I will do
I
my
mean-
very best, Dave, to nail this thing down, try to rope everybody in.
I think it's really important that, yeah, I mean, it's just, we're so close, it's just hard to not just push it over the finish line here.
Okay.
Okay. Is there anything else that you want to say about what we've discussed, or what might just,
Maybe just to clarify in my own head, in terms of the easements, do the engineering types have to provide you and Ray with kind of like survey specifications for what's involved in setting them in paper onto the plat? Is that what you're reading?
Or there'll be, no, we're waiting, I'm waiting for a list from Mike of what easements the village will be taking. So I can just put in a list of stormwater, sidewalk, greenway, et cetera. Very broad list to put into the conditions. And we also don't need the easements done by the time the plat's approved. So that is not a deadline that we're looking at to get all the actual easements done.
So in terms, but you don't require a specific description of the easements then?
We'll need something identifiable, either if we just reference the plat, or if we figure out another way to work through that referencing. That's something that Ray and I can work on, and if we need something from engineering, we'll get it, but for, at least for the November meeting, we don't need to drill down too deep into the nuts and bolts of that.
It just seemed to me that the easements are, I mean, they have a purpose, you know, stormwater easement, trail easement, but they don't really, they need to be more specific in terms of locations precisely. So that's what I was wondering. When that happens, or does that need to happen right away?
That'll happen when we get down to you sending me in a final site plan, an actual site plan for the site permit. When we get into the building permits, we'll have the easements on that site plan. And then we'll need to, Natalie and Ray will have to work out the specifics, the language of each easement to make sure, you know, details of what's on that site plan. So that'll get done at that point. And then I can't close the site plan out until those easements are handed to us.
Right, okay. All right,
okay, good.
I'm good.
All right, great. So we will keep our public hearing open until our next meeting.
Yep.
And hopefully we'll be able to close it at that time, David.
Okay, great, thank you.
Next on the agenda is the public hearing, to continue the public hearing for the requested amendment to special permit 2021-4516. Eric Getzman has requested an amendment to the conditions of the approved resolution for special permit number 2021-4516. Planning board has determined the request to be a major change, therefore requiring a public hearing. Eric apparently did not realize that we would be meeting on this, what is a holiday for some. And so we are just going to leave the public hearing open until next meeting as well, I guess.
Yeah, I put it on the agenda, kept it on there, only because in case you wanted to talk anything, you want to talk more about it or whatnot.
Everyone got the letter from the residents?
About the trees,
Yes.
yeah. They raise a valid point.
Well, it's along the sidewalk. I don't think that if we have shade trees that it's going to block anything, but we can discuss that, I guess.
And it's quite a distance
Oh,
from,
yeah, no, the thing is, we're not suggesting like a screening of it, more shade trees for the sidewalk, which is for everyone in the village, not just them. So, if you look at our tree law, a sidewalk would normally need street trees in this situation. And so it may be something that we can consider. I think one of the things that we have to be thinking about is, are there some things that we would like to discuss with Eric? If we extend this, would there be something that maybe he would be willing to provide the village as a benefit for keeping this on hold as it is?
is lighting one of the things that we could request?
I suppose so.
I mean, it doesn't make sense to me that there is no lighting.
Mike?
I don't know if it's too far gone, but I mean, it's like we're kind of adding on items now that weren't really discussed when we first talked about the project. I mean, the trees we discussed, the reasoning we didn't do the trees, and I remember this specifically, was you have the road and then you have a small section of land in the right of way between the road and the sidewalk.
No,
You can't put it there.
No.
But because of the topography of the land, it was going to be dropping off,
but it didn't.
and it didn't drop off, and that was the reason why we decided not to put trees on there, because the trees would be
We
way
didn't,
down.
but some decided.
Yes, that was the reasoning behind not putting the trees behind there.
Yes, I recall that as well. And then when the final, so it may be that it's a possibility, to my mind, that it would be an opportunity to correct something that didn't happen, because we wanted that initially, and turned out it wasn't a situation. But I think more important is, if we do extend this, what are the pros and what are the cons? And what happens if the litigation does not go in his favor? What are we left with exactly? And I don't know how we answer that. It's still in discovery, right? I mean, this could
Yeah,
go
it's
on
gonna
for
go on
years.
for a long time.
It's gonna go on, so this special permit, if we do not extend it, expires in December of when?
Next year.
December of 2024, which is what he's asking.
For an extension until October of 2024, I thought.
Yeah, for the final of phase 2, yeah.
Okay.
You also, if we're going back in history, we had also mentioned something about putting some type of landscaping on the inner loop. Because
Yeah,
it's kind of.
it's a
just-
wasteland.
oh, nothing-
People have sort of
nothing there.
mentioned to me, what's the,
And and Eric had said in the minutes that, he had planned on building more inside there, and that was the reason why he didn't want to put it in there. So just kind of refreshing your memory on that.
I think more critical is, from my observation, which I was taking pictures on a regular basis, but guest parking is really an issue. From when they have guests, they can't be parking in that inner loop. Can they in the winter when it's muddy and whatever?
Inside that loop, I mean, I would advise on it, but I would advise
I
it.
guess they can do what they want.
So is the inner loop just a driveway, or is that considered an actual roadway?
It's a private road.
Private,
Oh, it's private, so it's his responsibility to
Yes.
maintain.
one way supposedly, although it's not, signage is not does not indicate that, which is another one of the
And
little open items.
at this point, all of his stormwater is still, everything's still open right now, because he hasn't got, you know, it was, the calculations and everything were all part of phase 2 going in. Brent, would there have to be something that would have to be specifically done if he never does this, or just make that site, level that site off and put down grass? Would that work to close out, enough to do an NOT?
Yeah, I think that could be done, but I guess the question would be is, would we be doing so with 100% knowledge that those two buildings are never going to get built? Or
Yeah.
would we be expecting that to come back? I guess they could always come back in the future with a new stormwater management plan to reintroduce whatever would need to be done there. So I think it is possible. It's up to us as the MS4 to call that shot. And, you know, if they were to put in a proposal to level it off, seed it, you know, do whatever it is that they needed to do to stabilize it, then we could sign off on the NOT. Just that I would want him to know that if he ever came back, he'd have to introduce a new stormwater management plan to reopen it as at the DEC.
I think if we would come to that point, if this did get extended and he didn't meet that extension again, I think that would come to that point, that we'd have to close this, require him to close that up.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm just kind of thinking that next year, if we almost have to anymore.
I think at a minimum, too, is there's some of the construction stuff that he's left behind, the stones or whatever, should just be taken away at this point.
If you extend it, then you can make that a.
Yeah, that I think is a minimum that needs to be done, because it's just unsightly.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see these loose ends caught up with John.
I would too.
And all the other loose ends there.
Okay, well, everybody need to be thinking about what you think is the right way to go here. And we can have our further discussion when Mike is back in person next time, and when Eric is here, if he has something more to say. Okay, the continued presentation of the proposed PDA, Alexander Marigold will be presenting, and I guess, is this just not, is he, oh, Alexander is on.
No, I'm here. My apologies again. I didn't realize that I would be invited to this meeting until this weekend. So I'm traveling, so it's only my voice that you can hear. But I also, to be honest, I didn't realize that there's a continuing presentation. I thought at this point we're awaiting the board's recommendations on what kind of studies you would expect and what questions you may have for us to go on further.
We're having, it's hard to understand you. You're not coming through very clearly, Alexander. I think at this point, it's up to us to be able to start like reviewing what you've given us, right, Mike? And
Yes.
I think that one of the things that I would like to do with the board is, because this is a PDA and it's a very big project, I would like to back up a little bit and go over just exactly what our code says about what a PDA is per Appendix A2, and really be sure, you know, we take some time to look at where your project fits and where it doesn't fit, and then just also consider if one of the things that I know in the past, when we had a previous PDA and people were concerned about it, it was kind of helpful to everyone to have a discussion about, if it were not to become a PDA, what the current zone might allow for options, so that people have an understanding that just because this is a PDA, and change, and it changes things. Change might happen also even just with regular zoning as a, business and technology. There are other kinds of businesses that might be there. But people have to, it helps, I think, for everyone to understand what some of those options might be for comparing with your project. And so I was hoping we could kind of back up. I don't know whether board members have taken the time to look at Appendix A2 really carefully. And I think it also is good to look at the comprehensive plan. There's a couple of sections there that I think it's important. Everybody has a comp plan, right, that you can refer back to at some point. Not necessarily tonight, but I just think it's really, this is a very big project. It's a lot of time and effort's been put into them presenting this and bringing this to us, and so it's not going to happen overnight, but we should be looking at it closely. And I don't know, maybe you can help me, Wolfgang. I was not at when it was presented to the trustees, but the trustees felt this was important to pass along to us. And I didn't know if there were specific things that you recall.
Well, the project looked at least that it's worth a closer look.
Okay.
So that was all, and let's say you have an existing site, you don't have any compaction of soil or minimum trees, or it's an industrial site right now, convert that one into some useful, like housing, for example, instead of having a storage or whatever, it's worth a look.
Okay.
A more detailed look.
Right.
So in general, I would say the board looked at it favorably, just for these reasons.
But, right.
Not going into the details, not doing any, planning and whatever.
Just
say, hey, we would entertain a closer look here, because it looks okay given the circumstances. And given also what's up there right now and what has been developed 15 years or the last 15 years up there, let's say, just given these circumstances.
Okay.
Just to give you an idea of what could actually go into that area is if you take a look at what is east of Warren Road, anything that you see over there would be generally what would be, you'd think that would be obvious, but that's the type of building. You're talking about motels, you're talking about administrative buildings. They have a radio tower over there. You've got, other than, there's two items in here such as, there's two items in here like the outdoor recreation, indoor recreation. We don't see that over at the Cornell B&T section, but you do see the general idea. I mean, it looks very nice over there, but that's what you're talking about. You're talking about government buildings, warehouse buildings, that type of stuff. As opposed to if you're weighing them against the PDA, it's hard to weigh against them because the PDA, you can create anything you want. So that's.
Well, I was going to say in terms of, so it was utility transmission storage plants, for example. Commercial assembly, soft goods, light industry, I guess that's what's going on there now. Research, design, prototype production, bank administration, transportation services. So that could be in terms of
bus station
or whatever there, so government buildings, outdoor recreation, indoor, and a school. And then alteration, this is where I had a question. Alteration to a building or improved site, or maybe it was all the ors. Change in use that results in change in applicable parking spaces, because this is an alteration to the building. One could say it's an improved site, or a change in use, but it does, of course, parking, that was just a strange thing, I thought.
You can change use, but the use is not allowed. What Alex wants to change to is not allowed in that district.
Okay.
So if they were to take, let's say they were to take the Transact building and turn it into an outdoor recreation club where they would require more parking space. Well, they have to come here for a special permit because of the change in the parking. Even though it is
an allowed use.
Allowed use.
Okay.
And then an office.
And then the general and additional conditions, it was, possibilities were a motel, hotel, which would be,
which is one there in the B&T park.
right, warehousing, storage, distribution center, like an Amazon or something, I guess, or low-traffic food and beverage. I mean, some of those things might be, have traffic implications as well.
Yeah, you put a restaurant.
And large trucks or whatever. So I think it's just important to be thinking about some of that when we're considering all of this. But I don't know.
I mean, the staple for the PDA, and we've talked about this before, is it beneficial to the village?
Well, yes, but it also, you know, if you look at this, I guess there's some things, though, that, and certainly we're interested in things that are creative, and we like the mixed kind of approach, just, you know, from what I've heard anyway. It does, there are some things where it does further the village comprehensive plan for what I looked at. It provides for residential. I think one of my biggest things is being sure that we've identified that workforce housing is a big deal, and that's what the county wants, that's what some of the things we want. And I just don't, there's always this tension between how many units a developer needs to have in order to make it profitable, and what we want. There's always that tension, and I think that's something we have to figure out.
Right, I was gonna share, Lisa, too, right? That's kind of the point is, I think compared to some other projects we've had in the village, you know, the scope of this
It's huge.
is huge. So I wonder if, and this is the question that, you know, I hadn't asked yet. I don't even know if I talked to anybody about it, but I think that, you know, if we're looking at, and like you said, is workforce beneficial, you know, or whatever type of housing, is it beneficial, yes or no? Okay, if we say yes, does this address that? Yes, but also looking at the scope of it, does that somehow make it detrimental? I don't know if it does or not. I also know that, you know, the comp plan is rapidly approaching the time for it to be updated. And a lot's happened in the village since the last time the comp plan was designed, and you know, how does that factor into everything?
Right.
Yeah, if you were to say to the builder, look, we'd like 20% of it to be like a workforce housing, you're then giving Alex a chance to, okay, we can punch these numbers in. What else do we have to have in the rest of the building in order to make this project work? So it'd be helpful to come up with some percentage of what you were looking for. I know it's hard to do,
Right.
you know, and then Alex can also help us out. I'm sure they've had some figures at some point. Maybe they haven't, but they're gonna have to address it at some point. What they have to have for these apartments. And if they have to have so much for these apartments, is it even feasible to have workforce housing?
Well, that's what I'm saying, and that's one of the things that concerns me the most is, and I think I brought this up at the very first time that it came, is, you know, it's always a goal, and then halfway through, you know, you're doing something on the building, you discover, oh my God, we've got, you know, asbestos everywhere, this is gonna cost 6 times more than we thought, something along those, whatever, using that as an example. But, you know, there's always, you know, unexpected things that happen, and you want to just be sure that if this is what we are going to require, that it's going to be feasible, and with unexpected things. But I think that's one of the things that we have to really, I think one of the things that, the mistakes we made from observing our other PDA in our village is we were not strong enough. I think we felt we just really had to, you know, accommodate this, and you don't have to do that. We don't have to do that if there are some things that don't work out. But it behooves us to try to make it work, and for everybody's benefit. And certainly, I mean, the fact that we're not tearing down a building and basically kind of leaving the site pretty much intact It's a beautiful area. But, you know, it really is, I drove over there and went down behind, because they were gonna put a battery storage system back there at one point. And
Yes.
so, right, actually, right
Mhm.
behind that building, right, overlooking East Point.
Oh.
And then they changed, they didn't do that, perhaps because they knew they were moving or whatever. But, you know, again, the East Point development is right there, but they chose to be right there as well. I mean, you know, that's what they needed to do, was be really close to the property line to make it profitable for them, apparently. And so, you know, we have had our letter that, from the people there, where they're concerned about this, but, you know,
Alex, is it possible, are you in a position, I guess, are you in a position to be able to give the planning board, out of the 250 or 230, 250 units, come up with a sample of what could be workforce and what could be, you know, the rest of them? The next one would be high income, however it breaks down. Can you come up with examples so it could be a starting point, and have that example obviously be workable for the people you represent? Is that even a possibility?
You mean like a sample mix of what's like percentage of this, percentage of that, in terms of housing distribution?
did you understand, could you hear what he
I
said?
can understand.
Sample mix of various types of housing, basically, but it has to be like, the numbers
no,
have
look,
to work, what you are actually able to accomplish
Right.
within that
Well,
mix.
again, it's one of those things that's the kind of cart before the horse sort of situation. We're in the very beginning of the thing. We can certainly work with the developers and figure something preliminarily out for you, as a kind of sort of a beginning of the discussion. I mean, I'm not sure how sort of final or comprehensive it will be, but we can certainly give it a try.
Well, it certainly is the very first objective is that, actually.
It would give the planning board at least a starting point. It's gonna have to be figured at some point, whether it's done now or during the developers conference. So
Right. Well, again, I mean, sure, we can do that. We're sort of right now we're kind of bracing for the idea of like what kind of studies you would like in terms of whether or not sort of 250 units are possible in principle in terms of the sewer load, in terms of the water load, and all that kind of stuff. So
Well, yeah,
we can give a kind of a breakdown of sort of unit types a try for sure.
Okay, and the other point would be the traffic study.
Oh, yeah, that's,
Does the
Right,
planning
traffic
board
study
want
is
that done beforehand, before they get into the developers conference, or is this something you want to do later? I mean, it's not specifically stated, but it seems somewhat logical to do it beforehand.
I would think so.
Brett, do you have any word on that, or any, yeah, you got your hand, look at that. I saw you put your hand up before you even did it.
Yeah, right. So I think I would agree with Alex that the answer to that is a little bit, you know, what comes first. You kind of want to know what traffic impact, but it really would boil down to what is going to be the mix of how many size units, you know, because the traffic study is based on the number of residents, trips per day. So you'd have to kind of at least, they'd have to come up with at least a proposal or a goal of number of, you know, how many one bedrooms, how many two bedrooms, so that they could base their traffic counts or traffic trips per day on that.
Right. Well, yeah, that is actually a lot easier, but what it seems like what the board is asking is much more sort of nuanced thing, is like what kind of demographics and what percentage sort of breakdown we would expect, and that sort of lies a little bit beyond the kind of like, oh, square footage per person sort of thing, right? There's a kind of financial implication, there's demographic study implication. This is kind of more in the realm of sort of a development than architecture. But again, I can certainly talk to these guys, and we can give it a try.
I would say that in general, I think it's a good idea to have that task early on as is feasible, to have the traffic information, developed as early as the information will allow it to happen.
Right. The traffic information, sure. Okay.
I think the traffic is also always a concern to, for example, the Lansing Trails and East Point people. So I think the sooner that we have some information in that regard, one way or the other, it might be helpful. But somewhat the demographics kind of might change the traffic, no? I mean, I think last time, Alex, you had mentioned having perhaps, kind of pods where some are the senior housing and so some people maybe not. How do you calculate how many cars per unit? Or the parking's 1.5, how is it, 1.5?
1.5, right. Well, that's again more in the kind of in the traffic study realm and the traffic engineers, but there are formulas for that.
Okay.
So that's a sort of more of a mathematical thing than anything else, and that's based on statistics, obviously.
So one of the other questions I had when I was looking at the seeker was, how much do you calculate, just for information, I had always heard for water consumption, or was 50 gallons per person per day. Is that not correct? Brent
Cross has that.
So there are different engineering references that will help come up with that. The one that I'm most familiar with, which is what the Village of Cuyahoga Heights uses for its equivalent water consumption for conversion into the sewer, is an average number over all types of housing units of 200 gallons per day, but that covers anything from a 1-bedroom to a 5-bedroom, and it's just intended as an average number. So certainly, if Alex's team were to want to fine tune that and could come up with a more detailed breakdown, that we would certainly be willing to look at that.
Well, but that's actually more or less what we have. It's like
it is. I just
50,000,
was
right? So, yeah, that's kind of more or less the number we use. I mean, obviously, the kind of further into this thing, we can sort of fine tune it probably more per toilet per day per whatever per unit.
Because, on the seeker, I sort of looked at that, because I think you had said 60,000 gallons a day, and I thought, well, okay, so for 250 units, that would be 240, but for 300 units, it was the 200 that you just mentioned. Okay, I was just curious more than anything.
So we'd like to have Alec do the traffic study.
Yep.
We would like to have, if possible, some type of sample where you could show you could do 20% of workforce housing, if it's possible. And then we need.
Wait, 20% is what, is that the goal?
I'm just saying, yeah, I wanted to get the planning board a starting point, Alec, that's all.
I see, okay.
And then the third thing, if I'm understanding this correctly, is we have talked about the sewer units, which we really can't do anything with that right at this point, but we also have water consumption, which we're going to have that figured and to make sure that could be actually supplied via talking to John Courtney, whether that can actually be supplied from, I think that's fed from the airport, whether there's enough supply to actually increase it enough for this facility. So that's something that you and John Courtney would have to work out. So those are 3 items, if you could work on those.
Okay, sounds good. And in the ideal world, like what would be our kind of goal, I don't know, date sort of for that?
The dates?
Well, our next,
like what's our next big sort of, I don't know, deadline here? Or the next big, let's say, sort of milestone to hit? I'm just trying in terms of
Whatever
scheduling.
meeting he can get it done. by. I mean, there's no set time frame.
yeah,
The board is basically requiring this in order for it to be deemed a complete application. So once we get those things from you, then we can go to the developers conference. So it's
see,
it's
okay.
kind of as quickly as you want to make it happen. The next meeting is November 13th.
Well,
So you have a little bit
Yeah,
over a
but-
month.
if I remember the kind of materials that Mike sent that are required for the PDA, those things you just mentioned, they weren't part of that. So that's kind of in addition to. I
As
guess I'm
part
sort of.
As part of the PDA language, it does give the board the authority to request additional information before
I see,
deeming
okay.
an application complete.
All right, sounds good. Would it be possible, sorry, because I'm kind of like in the driving mode right now, would it be possible for somebody, maybe Mike or somebody else, to kind of send a recap of like the board's requirements?
yes, of
Yep.
course.
That would
Might
be wonderful.
Yep, I'll send something to you, Alex.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
I did have one question about, I can't understand on the plans. So the part that they're going to add, how high will that be ultimately?
Alex was talking something, it would be under the 45 feet.
It would still be under the
Right.
45?
It would still be under the 45.
Okay, because the 45 is allowed now in
Is
that
allowed
area,
in
right?
B&T, yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's, whether it's them or someone else could also add and go 45. It's just that the current building is very low, actually, for that
Yes.
area. Okay. Because I was wondering about that. Because, yeah, I couldn't tell whether,
Yeah.
all right.
And it wouldn't all be the 45 feet because.
No, because it's
a step-
staggered,
There's a step
right.
down, as Alex was saying, there's a
Yeah.
step down on the west side.
Right.
And probably some other areas.
And I think that in the drawings that I saw, well, it's really hard to tell because there's no windows in all this, but,
There are
So-
windows in the other, if you just flip forward, the ones without windows were, like I said, more of massing. But we since then have developed use with windows, so we can send you those as well.
well, it's some of them, it's these bigger ones, whereas these guys, there's some there, but when I'm looking at it's these that I'm talking about. Where I
Well,
look at these, I go,
those, that's like more of a mess, but yeah, okay.
I know. So, but may I ask, Alex, so when I'm looking at level 4 plan, for example, it shows
Yeah.
the courtyard. So every unit has windows to the outside, it's just they may not have it a cross draft kind of thing, right? They have windows either to the courtyard or to the outside?
Right, well, it depends on the units, but
That's
yeah.
right.
Yes. Oh,
Okay.
obviously, yes, everybody has light in there. That's kind of the whole point, yeah.
Okay. All right.
So we'll pretty much start with that.
Yep, let's see, yeah, I think the traffic thing is really,
So I think before we end this conversation, I want to make sure that I get my comments in because I've been kind of like wanting to say something. So I think everybody knows I live at East Point Apartments, and I happen to be at that end of the complex, close to where this development will be. I put a lot of thought to this, and I'm really very concerned about the proposal for this development because of the size of it. You know, East Point Apartments I've been there since 2019. I was like the first person in my apartment. And it's a very quiet community, and it's a safe community. And I'm concerned about the size of this project and what it will bring to the community and problems that it will bring to the community. I've really tried to wrap my head around the size. 230, 250 units is a lot of units, and I can't even picture it in that space. And I've tried, I've driven by a million times, walked by it a million times, and I can't. And so I'm just wondering, would they consider a smaller amount of units, like 100-unit development or 150-unit development? I mean, 250 is just so much.
How many units are in East Point?
140.
Thank you.
Well, this is exactly what I'm saying, Lorraine, earlier, is there's this tension between what perhaps the scope is a little more agreeable to us from, and it's hard because we don't do this for business so much.
Yeah.
Kind of just, even just the physical space it might take. And what a developer needs to make it work money-wise.
Right.
And I mean, whether we like that or not, that's what drives this. And it is, I think in the past, one of the other PDAs we were considering, again, it was the scope as much as anything. There's some wonderful ideas in every PDA that's brought to us, but sometimes the scope is a little daunting. And I think that's what we're challenged with, trying to.
I mean, I just don't think that 250 units, a 250-unit community in that spot is a good, I just don't think it's a good idea. I mean, I don't think I don't think it's the right neighborhood, is what I'm trying to say, for this type of thing. And the right location. I mean, I'm not saying the village isn't the right location. I'm just saying that that piece of property on Bomax is not the right location for something like this.
This is why we're going to have to take our time and work through this.
Anyway, that's my
because we have
feeling, and I
received another letter in this regard. But we do have to keep in mind that there are things that could happen there too that may not be so comfortable either.
Well, that's right. That's the thing. Again, look, I want to sort of speak to the developers. I mean, I know that they have some kind of an understanding of what works and what doesn't, and I'm not sure sort of 150 works. But again, I don't know necessarily. But I appreciate that this may seem like a very sort of dense and sort of different thing as opposed to a kind of fairly quiet small factory. But like the lease ends in I think 1.5 years for this factory, and I'm not sure they're renewing this thing. So what may happen there instead could be sort of pretty much anything. And maybe, I mean, like one option that I think they were considering was like a self-storage unit, which is probably more quiet, but I'm not sure it's sort of any less sort of any less dangerous than anything else. So again, I mean, I'm not sure how to sort of advocate for the project that you have beforehand, other than from the kind of architectural standpoint. I know that we're trying not to go beyond the existing footprint and expand and sort of bite into any more undeveloped space. So the footprint is in a way given. And in terms of programming, I mean, density is not always a bad thing. Like it's kind of density of population means there's sort of vibrancy, means that there is potentially another community. But again, that sort of depends on how it's managed, depends on how it's built also. So, and there are certain things that I can control and certain things I cannot. But I'm very much hoping to work with the board to figure this out one way or the other.
So this would be, it's rental, so it's not home. How does that work in terms of management?
Oh, wait, I'm sorry.
Managing the property.
Similar to what would be on
East Point.
Cayuga View.
Okay, so there's a manager who.
There'd have to be a property manager on site, yeah. But for a community that large, how big is Cayuga View?
Oh, Cayuga's View is that, it's only.
It's not that
I'd forgotten, totally, 60?
60 to 80.
I mean, for
You
250,
forget?
for 250 units, they'd have to have
Well,
a
so maybe
team in
that's
there.
one of the things that we need to look at is, you know, is there room for making it somewhat less
Yeah,
large? So, but that's what, so those are the questions I guess we need to ask. But again, that's kind of, it will be driven by money, I can just tell you.
yeah.
It always is.
Oh, yeah, and there, it probably will end up not being workforce housing.
But so
Market.
for me, one of the things that's really important is a commitment to a certain kind of housing, which would make me more agreeable to, because it is, to my mind, a very creative use of the space, and I appreciate the effort they've put into trying to make it not just sprawl all over. I think, you know, I think Carolyn Greenwell brought up at one of the meetings that, you know, density, people are a little more agreeable to density than they used to be. You know, it doesn't have to be one house per acre, that's not really good for the planet, or in many ways, people don't want that anymore. They want a little more community. So that's what we'll have to look at. But, so you'll send Alex a little list, and we'll put him on the agenda for November 13th,
Well,
or will you be ready?
I'll wait for, I'll send it to you, Alex, what we spoke about tonight, and then
Yep.
when you think you're prepared to come back, just give me a heads up, and we'll come back and we'll take a look at things.
Okay, sounds good.
But I would say to everybody, just take a really hard look at Appendix A2 and just go through it and see, with this project in mind, what you think, as well as the comp plan, because there's a section in there. It's like, you know, planning for growth, housing availability, planning goals, you know, starting around page 23. There's not that much to go through, so, but it's really helpful to kind of put things in perspective, I think, by looking at both of those things. It helps me anyway. Okay, thank you, Alex, for coming,
All right,
even
thank
though you're
you.
on the road.
Yeah, sorry about that. I didn't quite realize I was gonna be coming today.
Everybody thinks that we're on vacation. But, you know, we're here. So the next item on
Take
the
care.
agenda is discussion of the solar array draft law. So it seems that we're coming down the home stretch on this. One thing has somebody besides me looked at the definitions again and really proofed them? I have not. I just start going through it and I think, oh, these are fine. And I actually, well, it's on page 153. Then I got to native perennial vegetation, and we capitalized pollinators for some reason. I didn't know if we should.
Because pollinator is a defined term.
Oh, and that's because it was, oh, and because it's a defined term, that's right. Okay.
My only thing that I found was, again, a consistency stuff. Are we going to say village code and zoning officer? Because,
Oh, yes, somewhere that came up.
yeah, I found a couple places where I think it needs to say village. And then I noticed on page 159, Mike's title changed to code enforcement officer. And I think we need to change the village code and zoning officers to be consistent.
So where was that on one,
That was 159
sort of,
in the decommissioning plan. First sentence.
at the discretion of the code enforcement officer?
Yeah, I think it needs to say village code and zoning officers. And
Yeah, so that's a new section that was added, which is why it's not right there. Yeah.
Okay, and Mike, the other thing I was wondering, under the decommissioning plan, tier 1 and tier 2, they're pretty much identical, aren't they?
Yeah.
Can't
No,
we just say?
No, they are not.
discretion- Oh, they are not?
yeah, they're different.
Discretion of the planning
One's a
board.
special permit, one's, no, they are not. It just, you think they are because
Look like-
not very consistent with our language. And so you think it's the same, but no, they're different.
It's a little bigger. I could have
It's hard because of the colors, but I think, so what are we going to choose for, what is Mike's official title? What do you always?
Mike's official title now, because we've also got it in the village
Code of zoning.
solar plan, yeah.
The village code
Code.
zoning officer?
Yeah.
Village zoning officer.
So Lisa, I can tell you where it needs to be changed.
What I would
You
say.
want to just save it for Mike, give it
Yeah,
to
just have
him?
Mike do it.
Because
What I
Mike
would
is,
say is either send it back to me in an electronic copy, like exactly where it needs to be changed.
Okay,
And if you're not comfortable doing that, print off a fresh copy and write it on there so I
oh
can.
no, I can go in and send it to you.
I wanted to ask about something, though. Oh, yeah, okay. Residential building, no. Oh, so on page 155-6, ownership changes. If the owner, blah, 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 shall be, including any dimension, blah, 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 provided that the successor owner or operator assumes in writing all of the obligations of said plans. What if they don't? What if they don't assume in
Permit's
writing? Then they don't.
Then the special permit does not remain in effect.
Oh, I see. And so then
The
what?
special permit shall remain in effect provided that the successor owner assumes in writing all obligations of the plans.
And if they do not, then the special permit goes away, and then what happens to the?
Removed.
It gets removed. Okay.
Decommissioning plan.
And then, okay, that automatically then, okay,
They don't have a special permit, they don't have a building permit.
okay.
Which I had a question, and I don't see that you get the comments.
Oh, it's, I think I
'Cause
printed,
you
I
printed
don't,
too much.
I guess I.
But so that refers to a special permit. But T1 will not get a special permit.
Oh, and so that's the roof mounted.
So if there's a change in ownership, that there's any sort of requirements or maintenance plan or decommissioning plan in T1, also the farm thing is in T1.
Which is more
Do we
important.
want to, I guess I've always been confused about what type of permit are people getting under this? Are they getting a solar permit, a building permit, a special permit?
It depends,
It depends.
doesn't
So
it?
we need to figure out what type of permit language goes in 6 to cover everybody.
Yeah, so we'll have to put something in there specific to tier 1 permits that only require, or tier 1 requirements that only require a building permit. So we can factor that in there too, Natalie.
Sort of, I still sometimes just want
Why isn't there
a
a solar
bulleted,
permit?
why is it a solar?
Why isn't there just a solar permit?
I don't think that a solar permit is a
because-
thing, and I don't think that a solar permit would take place of a
well,
building
it's-
permit, Mike.
No, it's not the
Well,
same
I
as,
mean,
it doesn't have the same
Solar permit.
sexes.
you could look at also, we have roof permits, which are all filed under building permits.
I myself have just gotten confused with the various types of permits that are being issued under this, but I guess that's just how it is.
Well, a solar.
But then the application is called the solar permit application, but no one is ever getting a solar permit,
They're gonna
a
apply.
building or a special permit.
Got it, yes, you're right.
We're right back where we started. But this is the
So-
model law. The
I
model law
know, this is
doesn't have a solar permit, but this is called the unified solar permit.
Yeah.
But there's never a solar permit.
So to clear up your question about building permits and special permits, every tier gets a building permit.
Okay.
You get a building permit for every tier. You get a special permit for tier 2 and 3 in addition to the permit.
See, I think we spelled that out at oh, maybe not. I always kind of wanted just a bulleted thing that said, tier 1, building permit required.
So that's under general, general
it is,
requirements.
it is.
Where we spell it out.
You're missing my comment where I said, just to beat a dead horse. T2 and 3 get a solar permit, which no one gets, a building permit and a special permit. But they get a building permit and a special permit. You're just missing my comments.
I am. How sad. I must have.
Yeah, I limited it out to it's right there.
Oh, this is for 9, this is, I have the wrong one. Okay. Does anybody have anything else for Mike?
It's almost like a solar application as opposed to a solar permit. You're right, Natalie, because
Yes, I think it
you're not
is.
getting anything. We're saying you have to fill out this solar thing, but we're not giving you a permit at the end of it. We're just
That's why
saying,
it's-
hey, in order to get your special permit or building permit, you always have to fill out this solar application.
Yeah, that is why it's troubling me.
Okay, so, because on page 156, you have 8 permitting requirements for tier 2, and it says, application and site plan review. Application for tier 2 solar, including materials for site plan review, shall include, but are not limited to, shouldn't that say are not limited to? Hold on. 156, page 156. A, 8A.
Oh, that's a different,
Yeah, different page number. It's permitting requirements, A8.
Say, yeah,
but are not limited to?
I think we're missing the word is all.
yeah, are not limited to.
Yeah,
I think included but not limited to.
Oh,
I wouldn't necessarily, but I think it's right either way,
shall include, but
are not.
are not limited to.
Okay, you can put the are.
Well,
Yeah,
I don't care.
You're right, you're right.
There's something
You are
missing there,
correct.
that's
Are.
all.
Including but not limited to, which I would.
Well,
the other
either way, that's
It's
almost
fine.
nicer.
Did you see my, you didn't, my comment at 9, I noticed in the model law, there's a list of requirements for the tier 3 that were omitted in this version.
Decommissioning. Tier 3, the decommissioning.
And not just the decommissioning plan, but in the model law, the application and site plan review requirements had a rather long list, if I recall, under tier 3, that is not in this. And I didn't know why it was omitted, if we're kind of aiming for user friendliness. Or if we're just not gonna require those things.
I think I might have taken out some of those because there's a few of them that were redundant. And also to simplify it, I took out a few that I didn't feel were necessarily needed to issue a permit.
Okay.
Do you want to look at that again, or?
As long
So I
as
remember, it was a long list.
It is a long list, which is why I was surprised it was all gone.
I took some of them out, there's still some of them left. Doesn't this refer to needed items? Isn't it referred to exactly what you were talking about, Natalie, the list of, what the hell was it?
Like the general requirements?
No, it wasn't general requirements.
While they're looking for that, Mike Baker.
Yeah.
Under 9, permitting requirements for tier 3, A2.
Yep.
It should say decommissioning plan instead of decommission plan, just to be consistent with the other.
yes. I'll look for that everywhere.
Yeah, I think that's the only one, but who knows?
Yeah.
What is,
And then the solar panels and everything about the pitched roof being mounted on a maximum of 8 inches, pitched roof installed parallel, pitched roof not to exceed the or highest point, solar panels on flat roofs, those are all the same in all 3 tiers. I don't know if you want to make those
general?
in general.
I thought we decided just because somebody might just be only interested in a certain tier, they might not pay attention. Am I remembering that, just to be, it did seem redundant, but,
Yeah, there was a version where we took them out and moved them up to general requirements,
and
and
then
then
it got lost.
there was a discussion about moving them back down to each tier. But there was a discussion about what should we put in each tier in case somebody is just interested in that specific tier versus, because there's a couple other things too that we put in every tier. They could potentially just be a general requirement.
Yeah, I think we sort of agreed that it's better to be a little redundant than to have people forget or not notice or whatever. All right, so tier 3 is, all right, so anybody who has changes, how would we know? It was under validity and abandonment, the very last page. How would we know whether it's not been generating electricity for the past 12 months? How would we become aware of that? It says upon cessation of electricity generation, blah, 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 the village may notify and instruct the owner. How would we even be aware that that's happening?
It would be very difficult to be aware. It'd be like,
I read that and I thought, huh.
it's almost like when we talk about the short-term rentals, how do we know unless we know? I mean,
But I guess once, if we do know, then this would apply, but other than that, it was like, so we're gonna run around with, there must be some sort of tester, like, a little electronic tester to see if it works. Oh, boy.
after the requirements of,
Where,
I think that, I wonder if that got taken out.
what, tier 3?
There was a list, there was a large list of requirements that came,
That's what
that
she's
came with
saying.
the or unified solar permit, came with that. And I cut those down, or at least I referred to that list in here someplace, and I don't see it now.
That's what I'm saying, maybe we need to go
Yeah,
back and look at that again, I think, because tier 3 is a biggie,
Is a biggie.
and.
I mean, there is a list under special permit standards, but then under, I mean, it's the shortest list of all of them.
Well, it's not in this.
Application and site plan.
It's in this that you're talking, the list that's
Yes.
in the model law.
Yes.
Okay, all right, so we need to look at that again, I think, just to be sure we know that we,
I'll look that up, because I remember cross-referencing what they were requiring. I
I
said
thought,
they,
I
I said the
remember you doing
unified,
that.
what they were requiring against what we require in a special permit.
Right,
And so by referencing our special permit,
Right.
it already took out some of the ones that the unified permit was requiring, but made sense on that.
And then that leads me back to why you included all the roof elements in each tier. Do we want to just include everything in one spot rather than making them go reference the special permit if they're going for a tier 3? Do you want it to be a one-stop shop?
On the list, the special permit requirements are, so they don't have to reference someplace else in the code.
That's up to the board to decide, but.
I always think that's what I would want.
What we tried to
Personally.
do, remember, what we tried to do was to avoid the section in our code that's telecommunications.
Right, which is 500 pages long.
It's 6, 7 pages long. We tried to
I think
avoid
it's more
that.
like 14, but.
But, so that's why I cut it down some, because what was in the telecommunications section that described all the needs, basically, this could fit right into it, but we wanted our own section.
But we got to be careful, though, that we don't shoot ourselves in the foot with this and not cover what we want. But, yeah, some of it was referred them to this, right?
Which, I need to make sure whatever change on that is still in there that it refers
So
to.
we don't really have tiers in this, it doesn't. Okay, at what point did we delete that?
On the
You
actual,
do refer to special permit standards in B, 9B. On 157.
Well, permitting requirements. Oh, so This one is a version, when was this one dated? This was dated June. And is this where, look at, this is all of it there?
Well, some of it,
And there,
even, you get to
in the
special
back.
permit standards.
But this is permitting for tier 3.
Yeah, but even this, I don't think has quite the list that I saw.
So
Could be
the
wrong.
May 5th, 2023 draft is where a lot of the things were taken out of the tier 3 piece.
Yeah, I don't have the May.
That's where like nameplate capacity, zoning district, property lines, maps of soils, adjacent land, all that stuff. Mostly everything under B was omitted. And then there's subsequent, obviously, revisions where other things were taken out and moved around. I can zip up and send out, all the revisions of this that we've reviewed if people, I mean, they're in people's inboxes, but if it's easy just to have, here's a fresh email with all the revisions, we can send that out.
Yeah, I don't, for some reason, I don't have May. I just go back to June. I guess
Yeah, because in the May 9th draft, a little bit more was taken out of tier 3.
Okay.
And then I'll have to go and look. Those are just the ones in May that it seemed like in between April and May, that's when a bunch of stuff was taken out of tier 3.
Oh,
These were all
wow,
taken
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, because, yeah, I do remember our discussion, and we're sort of saying, oh my gosh, let's not, add 7 pages to the code, but I think we have to be careful.
Well, if you're talking about submittal documents, the
Code, this, then we
the
go over.
application has the choice of
Yeah.
its submittal documents. There's a reference to a solar guidebook on page 4. But if they decide not to go with that application, which gives me all the information I need, then they have a choice. They have to provide the items below.
That's right, so that's this part then.
And then I consolidated the items below there was some things in there that didn't pertain to us.
So that was how it went. You, anything that was important, you put it in the permit
Yes.
application for, under construction documents. Must comply with the uniform code. Yeah, can't believe it. And this is the nearest, right? Anything else? What are we going to do here?
No, to me, I just point out problems.
Well, I think we better be sure that we've got this where we think we are. I mean,
In my opinion, as far as getting information provided to us, I
it's
think
okay.
that's covered in this Village of Lansing solar permit of all the items needed.
That we're,
In the solar law, it references the special permit. So at this point, do you want to put in all the special permit requirements that it references, or do you just want to reference the special permit?
I would reference the special permit because if the special permit ever changes, then we also have to come and change this local law.
yeah, I thought that's what we had decided.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, this is the, it is manufactured, the nameplate, this is all the stuff we did ask for, property lines. So this is all pretty much in here. I guess I'd like to take one more look at this, though, just to,
I think we need to add some animation.
something. So are we still dealing with the fact that we have modified the unified solar permit so that we can't call it a unified solar permit? Do we care?
We fixed that in this one, so we fixed that and called it the Village of Lansing Solar Permit.
I
Maybe
know
it should
that
be-
we have fixed it, but is philosophically, is this the way, this is the way it should
You
be?
want to propose it to the board?
That we, because we have to, propose this to the Board of Trustees.
Hmm.
Yes, no?
So the original discussion, right, if you take a look at the New York State Solar, Unified Solar Permit, it is big, it is bulky, it is clunky, there's a lot in there. The general discussion was to, and as some other municipalities did, come up with something that gets the information that we need in a more user-friendly format, which, so that's the discussion the board had. This is the result of that discussion.
And because we changed it
We
and
can't call
modified
it the unified.
it, and they brought up that you really can't call it
Right.
the unified solar permit because it's no longer what it was intended to be.
That's what I thought from the very beginning as well.
Personalize it.
Yeah.
Well, we basically worked off the West Islip one where they did call it
Yes.
the New York State, so that kind of led us astray for a bit until we sort of, I said, how can you
I
call it
mean, I
that?
did
And then,
send an email asking if the information is substantially similar, can we still call it the Unified Solar Permit? And no one has responded to me, but as far as West Islip, as my father always said, 2 wrongs don't make a right.
that's,
Yeah, I'm definitely not comfortable calling it the New York, Solar
I'm not.
Unified Permit, because it's not. That's an entirely different thing now.
okay. Natalie had mentioned, I don't know whether the Board of Trustees will care.
I just know that Carolyn had come to us in the very beginning of this process, saying that the board wanted to ratify the Unified Solar Permit. And to the extent it is no longer the Unified Solar Permit, but it still gets the job done, and it still allows us to issue building and special permits for solar arrays, will that suffice for them? Or do they want something where it's such that anyone can come into this municipality that has been to another municipality that ratified the Unified Solar Permit, know exactly what to expect on the Unified Solar Permit, and be able to fill it out? I don't know. It's basically the same, the Village of Lansing one, but it's not the same. So I don't know to the extent it matters.
Oh, I see, you're talking about a contractor, for
Yeah.
example.
Which is the intent of the New York State Unified Solar Permit, was to make it easier for contractors to come in and do this, because they know what to expect on the permit. And not every municipality is not going to have a different permit or set of requirements.
Gotcha.
Are the requirements any different, Mike, or is it just, aren't Pat and those who worked on the form? I don't think we've overridden any requirements. I think it's just an easier way to, my take is if you can fill out the New York State Unified Solar Permit, you're not gonna have an issue filling the one out from the village.
And I understand what Natalie's saying,
Absolutely.
in that it's not just falling off a log, but still, I think too that we were very careful to be sure that everything that was on this, and in fact, we felt we were making it clear.
It is clearer, I'm not arguing that.
I guess, well, maybe it's not a bad thing to have them have a little bit of a change. It's sort of like when you cut and paste on a document, sometimes you get into trouble, because you think, oh, this is no sweat, and then, so they have to sort of pay more attention and be a little more thoughtful when they're filling it out. It's another approach, anyway.
Yeah.
I think I'm comfortable with it. I guess we'll find out if our trustees are. We have 2 of them here listening to our conversation. We'll see what they think when.
I tell you what, if they're not, it's not like we have to rework this entire thing to
No,
accommodate that change.
That's right.
And change it in the document.
But I think we went down this path because we found the state one a little cumbersome. Yeah, cumbersome is exactly right.
Yes.
Which is, and so did West Islip. So,
I don't think we're the first to modify.
I don't think so
No,
either.
I
It's
don't
just,
think so.
I think we're the first to say, gee, you can't call it unified thing.
And I'm sorry for making everyone repeat conversations that were had while I was on leave.
That's, no, I think it's great,
This is
because,
much better to name it the Village of Lansing, because if you tell someone you fill out the solar permit, someone could just go online, fill out the solar permit, they can't, and they go, no, not that one. Well, yours says unified solar permit, here's a unified solar permit, and then they start getting all,
Exactly.
Confused.
then we start calling each other names, and then I visit their house and all that kind of stuff.
and then you deny their permit.
No, that's a very good point, too.
Okay,
Pat, I do have some changes. Do you want me to just give you my copy? I mean, they're just consistency things.
Okay. Lorraine did bring up some things when she sent me her previous changes. The paragraph on the first page,
yeah,
solar permitting is available. That was a question you had, whether the word
Yeah,
permitting is,
It refers to permitting all through, and I'm like, is that really the word?
yeah, I think
Is it permitting?
the Village of Lansing solar permitting.
Wouldn't it be permit? The Village of Lansing?
Well, the permit is available through permitting process, but
Oh,
I don't know. I don't know. Yes,
yeah, that was
No.
a question that I had. I'm like, it just,
What the unified.
the word permitting just sounded weird.
I think it is a word, I've heard
yeah,
it
we
before.
pulled it off the New York State.
Oh,
If we want to change it, we can, if you think it's.
well, it's like through here, through and through, I think, so, no.
I'll just leave.
I think we're probably gonna leave it, because then you would have to change it, yeah.
The one thing,
I've heard that is the permitting process.
Yeah, I know, that is old school, isn't it?
and then would you, I don't know whether it happened, but when I printed this out, this second section on if you answered no to 2 and 4, it gets cut off on mine. And I couldn't quite read, it gets cut off at the top, and I don't know if it was my paper didn't feed.
This page?
Yeah.
It's proper on the one that Mike handed out.
I just was wondering if you could move it down a little. Oh, see, the blue, I didn't even get the blue
It's not
line.
even the same.
I think
Yeah, see, no, it isn't the same pagination. How come? Because you see, this part got
Yeah.
carried
Yours is
over.
on page 2.
Mine's on page 2, and then
Did
it
you
cut.
have it in like review mode or something?
I have no idea. I have a situation with printing, and so I have to put it on a USB and then go downstairs and use my husband's computer. However, if I was in Maine and I forgot to go to the default or to change the print of this up there, and I print to this up there, I get home and all of a sudden it starts printing documents from the printer that I can't print from upstairs. Just saying. I don't know. I have no idea what mode it's in, to answer your question. I've given up. But, well, if nobody else has a problem, I'm sure it's fine, because I'm sure it's my problem. But other than that, I think it looks great.
Yep.
And if we just do the whole, and we are going to have a notarized statement, right? If there's more than one layer of roofing? Because at one point, there was a notarized, that for this thing, there was a notarized thing, but then we got rid of that they signed that all answers are correct, but there is, for roof mounted systems 4, on page 5. I just wanted to be sure that's what we intended. If there is more than one layer of roofing, it's like the 4th, 5th bullet down, the registered design professional is to approximate the remaining life of the roofing. Homeowner must provide a signed notarized statement as follows. Okay, just,
I mean, notary's not hard to come by. You can
No,
just
it
sign in
isn't.
front of Jody.
right. Because
Are we
we removed it from the person saying that everything is correct and wonderful.
Are we removing the word permit here?
Village of Lansing Solar,
Because this is not the permit, this is,
it's the permit application. What do you think, code officer? Village of Lansing,
Solar application.
solar application?
solar permit application?
No one's getting a solar permit, Lisa.
I gotcha, sorry. Tell me one more time, how many times did you
Solar
say?
application, can you fit it on there without?
Yeah,
It'd be much smaller.
Village of Lansing Solar,
Application.
Or I could-
well, you 2 lines, you could do.
or I made 2 lines.
Village of Lansing Solar application.
And requirements.
But underneath it says permit
There's
application.
I
permit,
just take,
Just get rid of
Yeah.
permit.
I would just take that line out,
yeah, just leave Village of Lansing, and then
and then solar.
solar
application
permit and
requirements.
application, solar application and requirements, yeah.
Solar application,
Make it happen, Pat.
Yeah, requirements.
Village of Lansing. Solar application and requirements, lovely.
There you go.
There's room still.
Easy.
What did you just say?
Village of Lansing, then delete the words solar permit, the blue. Then where it says permit, delete permit and replace with solar.
If you're
Delete,
applying for a permit, you're not applying for a solar, whatever a solar is.
But you're not applying for a solar permit.
Isn't,
You're
I thought,
applying for a building and special permit.
okay, wait a minute,
You're
just
not the only one, Jim.
stop a minute.
Let's just call it Bob.
What, Village of Lansing,
Conversation in the tree law again.
solar system, well, what are we trying to do here? Why are we having them do this at all, then? We want them, they're applying for, they are applying for permission to install a solar system.
Village of Lansing solar array application and requirement.
That's not right either.
well, okay, what it says now, it says Village of Lansing solar permit, so that's the general subject area, right? And then the next line
Application.
tells you what this form is. This is the permit application and the requirements.
But what Natalie's saying, there's no such thing as a solar permit. It's all classified.
Because it, basically, you don't get permission, it's a solar permission.
You get a building permit
Permit or.
a special permit. We don't have a separate solar permit.
Maybe we need to.
Now, what's wrong with solar application? We're trying to wordsmith.
Because we're not applying
that,
for a solar.
By the way,
That's
What's
what a
that?
solar application is. We're not applying for a solar, we're applying, we're making a,
I'm fine to leave it solar permit, but no one's getting a
Nobody-
solar permit.
that's why I'm saying, what's wrong with just solar application? It is the Village of Lansing,
Right, solar application and requirements.
just Village of
or
Lansing.
if we can't
solar-
decide, we're gonna call it application A, and then we'll reference it everywhere in the law, and you can go fill out application A when you're ready to get a building and special permit for the installation of solar.
See, we have a roof permit application,
It's solar permitting,
but I don't give out a roof permit.
right, right.
Roof permit application has different information required than a
Okay,
normal
here
building.
we're gonna get
Do we have to
there.
change that too? Do we have to change that too?
We're leaving that alone.
The thing
Let's hear
is-
what I got here.
The good news is, most people are not gonna
Fair enough.
do this, even think this. We are only
So
doing
that
this
would
because
make
this
sense
is.
to leave it a solar permit.
I think so too,
We'd be consistent.
yes.
So where did you end up?
So we're not,
Right where we
so
started.
Okay,
change.
so no change, Pat, no change.
Step everywhere. Solar, Village of Lansing solar permit, all in blue, just beautiful like it is. And then permit, just like it's, don't
Not
delete a
changing
thing,
it.
do not change
we're
anything.
not making changes to it.
We just lost 4 minutes of our lives.
So in other words, we're
And
back,
we lost Jim.
them.
And we lost you. Okay, nothing changes.
so we're back to,
We're back to
back to
square one.
as is.
Yes, wasted
Well,
10 minutes of time.
that seems to be straightforward.
Nothing seems to be straightforward. Okay, I think that's enough already.
Okay.
Do we have a trustee report?
Yes, yep, so I was there.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, right, so The first item was Drew and Susan gave a report out on the night conference that they both attended and just talked a little bit about the sessions, and there was some chat about that. They did both agree though, and so did everybody else who had gone to that conference before, that it is, is very beneficial, and the information, that comes out of those things really is great. So we also had they also had a review of a natural resources inventory document. That's one of the items that you can get filled out, or I guess generate as part of the Climate Smart Communities program. And so having one of them gives you points towards that you can use for, various things, especially when we're filling out grants. So really what it was, there was a gentleman there, his name was Jerry Sheng. He went over the report. It was pretty much a baseline of the natural resources that exist in the village of Lansing now. And then some of the information there could kind of help direct changes in the next comprehensive plan if we want to incorporate them, and how to how to protect or enhance the natural resources that already exist in the village. There were some questions about some of the data that was in there, specific around some temperature averages that were included in there information wise, but it is just the initial document. So the board did approve it for the 2023 year, and there was going to be some follow-up on some of that information, just trying to figure out where some of those numbers came from or how they were generated, just to help answer some of the questions that the trustees had. They set a date for the village recognition event at Hickey Parks. So I think they settled on October 22nd at 12 p.m. And really that recognition event is for people, people who, obviously the trustees, the planning board members, people who help with the greenways, the parks, the plantings, the, employees of the village, the observers program, and their families. So there'll be more information to come out about that. Then they moved on to the mayor's comments. The only, big comment that Ronnie had was that had to do with Menlo Micro moving up into the business and technology park. So he had been up there. The company's kind of evaluating what equipment is already there, what types of office spaces and things like that they'll need. They are going to have a kind of staged population of the building, so it's not just going to be everybody moving in at once. But the ultimate goal is at some point they are going to have an open house for people to come and visit. And really the ultimate plan is to move all their overseas manufacturing into this facility that they're building here or occupying here in the village. So that was exciting. Wolfgang had some questions about timing for Transact and Borg moving out of their spaces or keeping their spaces, but Ronnie didn't have any updates on that. Drew did have just a couple questions regarding the solar array, and he and I have a meeting tomorrow afternoon, actually, with somebody from, and I can pull this up here in a second. I'll get back to that. I'll look at it, but we have a meeting tomorrow to go over some work that the city of Ithaca, I think, is doing, and just to make sure that there aren't any conflicts with some benefits the village could get from that in regards to our solar law. So we're going to meet tomorrow about that, and I can bring that up at the next meeting too. Drew also gave the liaison report, and then Carolyn brought up a topic. I guess the rec partnership is having kind of a budget shortfall this year, so they're asking the municipalities to contribute more, and and I guess the county administrator has a different number in mind. So the legislature in Tompkins County is looking at that shortfall and having discussions about what they want to do to address or not address that shortfall. And then they adjourned at 8:24 p.m.
Thank you.
Also, sorry I'm not there tonight, but I'm in a moderate amount of pain, so this is significantly easier for me.
Oh.
Well, you have plenty of time to recover till November 13th. So
hopefully tomorrow I feel better.
Yeah, hopefully. Any other business for us?
No, not really. You've got everything is on your table right here, the three big items. I've got a few other meetings that, once we have those, I could probably update you on some other possible projects. I just can't do them right now.
What's going on with McGuire?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
I was wondering the same thing.
Do we know?
I don't know.
Sales or something. Okay, just.
I don't know.
Once I drive by, I think.
Speaking of McGuire, over in that neighborhood, somebody got stabbed over there last Tuesday morning.
Yeah, I saw that.
I happened to be on my way to my workout, 6 a.m. workout class, and when I got to the corner of Warren and 13, cops were coming from
Oh,
both ways, behind me and coming, the troopers were coming 13 way, and of course, I didn't know where they were going, and they were going down Warren Road towards Bosse's, but I had to stay at the stoplight for so long that by the time I headed down 13, I could see them all over at Homewood Suites, and I happened to know somebody, and they said somebody got stabbed in the parking lot, and they made their way to the hotel lobby.
oh, my God.
Was this early in the morning this happened?
Yeah, it happened, it must have happened around probably, well, I was at the intersection at 20 of 6, so it had to have happened
Early morning.
shortly before that.
And it was in the apartment complex, or?
No, well, I'm not sure. I think it might have happened in the Trip Hammer parking lot. I don't know, Mike, did you hear about it?
No.
So it may have happened in the Trip Hammer parking lot. It could have happened up at Gaslight, or it could have happened over somewhere in that vicinity. But they made their way into the hotel lobby, and a guest who happened to be in the lobby called 911.
Geez. Well, that's good just to keep in mind.
I think there would have been a hotel employee in the lobby.
Well, I don't know all the
But no,
details.
No, I'm just saying, I mean, sometimes there's nobody there.
So you always
It's kinda
have something
scary.
for us. Anything else, maybe the more positive note or questions?
This is good to know. I
Well,
mean,
it is good to know. We don't have newspapers like we do local
I
stuff.
know, and they only report on certain things, like they obviously didn't report on that, right? And-
Well, of course, you always do police beat, but I mean, you have to make a career of all this, trying to keep
Yeah, and I don't have time for
up with
that.
everything.
If I hadn't have been at that intersection, I would have never known something.
Right, no.
Of course, then I was determined to find out
Look,
what was going on, because there was too many cops.
Right,
They were even, on my way down 13, they were even coming up from Ithaca, so I was like, okay, what is going on?
Yeah, I was at the trip once when all of a sudden there were lots of cops with their guns drawn. And that was just a little unnerving. And finally, I asked someone what, and it was just someone had escaped. So I don't know. But it happens periodically. So, well, it's good to know.
was that the Trip Hotel?
Oh, no, it wasn't. He robbed a bank. He had actually gone.
Oh, jeez.
Robbed the bank, sort of. Wasn't very successful, but at any rate, and really probably no one was really in danger, but it was pretty impressive, and it does make you feel, I think I want to go home now.
I know, right?
How about you? Anything, any questions?
Well, yeah, the only thing I can add, which is probably worth nothing, if not next to nothing, is when I was at, I have a Chevy, so I'm at McGuire somewhat regularly, and I asked, I think it was over the summer when I replaced the car, I had some maintenance on, I asked some people there, I said, by the way, when are you guys gonna be starting your big remodel? And I don't remember who it was, just kind of casual conversation. The answer I got was sometime this fall, but I don't know how.
Here we are.
That is, but here we are, but fall's not over. But they seemed, whoever it was seemed to indicate, yeah, it's gonna go forward at some point. But I was kind of curious because I thought it would have started by now.
I think we all did, but at any rate. Natalie, anything? No. Pat?
I wouldn't think for Mike, I've been meaning to ask about this, but maybe our lighting commissioner could check with CFCU about their light that they have on their flagpole out here. When you're coming out of Lansing Trails, heading
Nice glare.
huge. I mean, you get blinded when you
I
come
think
out that
they may
corner.
have actually considered that. And, this whole business of lighting a flag, I checked into that once.
Did it with the,
Yeah, and it's total darkness, but you do not have to kill people with their lighting.
The light's blinding, you come on.
But, we have so much ambient lighting in most cases that you don't need to light pretty much, but, yeah, no, they need to do something about that. Yeah.
And as long as we're talking about excessively bright, blinding light,
How about the
on my
M&T?
on my way here this evening, coming out the driveway from Lansing West Apartments at about the 1 o'clock position was an extremely bright light, which I determined was shining into the parking lot at the M&T Bank.
M&T Bank's
The light
right.
pole is probably, by the sidewalk or by the road, and it shines, towards the bank and towards, but all they need to do would be put like a metal awning or a shield on it. It was just blinding coming out the driveway.
Because I know there is, we've talked about this before, that there is lighting for ATMs and all that, but not to the point where it should be lighting that, not us.
They've got a halogen on top of their building that shines out really bright.
It's horrible.
To be honest, I just haven't, I do it, it's like a squirrel.
This time of year, I think it becomes especially noticeable because we're not, we now are driving here. I'm not usually out when they're at 10 o'clock, in the summer when it gets dark, but now it's only whatever, 8:30 or whatever, and it becomes really noticeable. But that one has been a problem forever.
Yep, I appreciate the.
In fact,
Thinking about
didn't
it
you
once
ask
in a while,
us to
I forget
write
about
you about that? Did you ever write him?
I don't remember being asked to write him about it.
I'd like
just
to have,
gave an
I'd like to have
oral-
an actual complaint, but I don't necessarily need it. It's nice to have, I can log it, and then now I have to do something about it, otherwise I get in Dutch.
Okay.
You won't get any complaints from me on the lights,
Um,
Mike. To me, the brighter the better.
I know.
I've got this thing about lights.
See, this one thing, it's not about brightness though, Lorraine, it's about where it's directed.
Yeah, yeah.
And it really does, when it glares at you, you can miss something that's right there if it's shining down at you, whereas if it's down on top of you, I see you. And so that's the goal always is, yeah, you have to have lighting for safety, no
I
question.
mean, I think it's just because I don't see well anymore, so like.
But at any rate, send them a quick note, just an email. Yes?
I have a really good relationship with all the people at the bank.
He's gonna make one of us do it.
No, I did complain to them, their manager, once a couple of years ago, as a former manager, and she said, well, she couldn't do anything about it. It was a corporate decision, and some such corporate non-answer mush, but it was, I thought it got better, but it was really noticeable tonight coming out. It's, because like so much LED, it doesn't really radiate, it's just an extremely bright point source of light.
Yeah, I'll look into it.
So I always think it's the one that's on the south side.
This would be on the east side of the parking lot. Wait, the south side of the bank? Well,
That's when you're coming from the south, like if you're coming from Cayuga Heights,
Oh, you're coming
or
from
you're coming
community
out
college?
by the other bank, and you come up, and it's that one over, there's some sort of awning thing there.
I'll drive by there tonight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that one's bad, too.
Yeah, coming from community corners, I can't say that I've noticed the problem light.
No, I have them that way. Okay.
Thanks, Pat,
Any-
I was getting bored.
Sure, please. Glad I can help.
Have anything, Lisa?
Lisa, I have a question. Where do you find the tree law? I was looking on the village website, and
It's 145.
is it in the code book?
Yeah.
Oh, I couldn't find it.
27, 20
20
point.
I was gonna,
It's tree preservation if you want to like search it online.
127, good work, 145-27.
Marty.
That's not a bad thing.
It's tree preservation? That we
Tree
said?
conservation and planting.
Preservation.
But just the fact that it's 145-27 is what you really need.
Okay.
And
Just some light reading. I've been
it's on
wanting,
page
I really do want to read it.
145022.
Okay, thank you.
I think I asked this at a relatively recent meeting. maybe something's changed. What's going on with the Trip Hotel or the Sheraton or whatever that thing is?
I do have one question. Is everybody pretty much talked out?
Now you make enough work.
The Sotheby sign,
The what?
Wrong state.
the Sotheby lease sign that's over on Lansing Trails, PDA. They're for rent signs, it's the real estates, isn't it Sotheby, am I saying it wrong? At any rate, it's.
I've never heard of it. Sotheby.
You got me lost.
Okay,
Lansing
there's,
Trails.
I didn't mean nothing, I meant Lansing at PDA, Meadows.
Lansing Meadows?
Okay.
There are two signs, for rent signs, okay? One is on his, right near his Blue Heron Way, blah, blah sign. The other one is on his property A1,
I hadn't seen that one.
and that worries me.
I can't do
Well,
anything with
sale.
A1 until he finishes.
Have we worded it properly that he can't?
Pretty sure.
I hope so. I was just wondering what's going on, or whether it was just because it's high up, and so it draws attention to that area, because you can see it from Trip Hammer, whereas you would not see, okay.
I know, it's-
You don't know, if you've noticed anything, it's basically real estate sign. And it's the Sotheby one, I mean.
Never heard of that. Is that a
Well,
new?
that's a famous auction house.
Yeah,
No, but it,
Real estate division.
yeah,
I know.
are they in town?
I don't recall seeing the sign.
what?
Are they local?
No, not
it's a
really, I think they're a
national
national, because you'll find them in other states too, yeah. Well, I mean, lots of these real estate places are. They're not Audrey Edelman's and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But at any rate, okay, well, if nobody has anything else, did I ask you, Mike? You already gave us a report. Okay,
good.
good. Feel better.
Thanks.
And I would entertain a motion to adjourn at 8:50.
I'll second.
The first by Lorraine, second by Jim. All those in favor?
Aye.
Pat, I'm gonna.
Everybody, November 13th. Oh,